Recently, there was a hand on Hustler Casino Live that was played by Mariano versus Jungleman, and it caused a little bit of a controversy on Twitter. Some people taking the side of Mike Matisow and others taking the side of Daniel Negreanu, who got into a little bit of a back and forth on Twitter about whether or not Mariano played the hand correctly. So that got me thinking, did Mariano play the hand correctly? Let me do some of my own work to see if this makes any sense. And so first, we're going to take a look at the actual hand, and then I'm going to show you some of the work that I did to look deeper into what I think is the correct decision. So first off, we have Mike's post about whether or not Mariano can even bet the river in this hand. And so let's take a look at the hand. We're going to take a look while I fast forward some of the parts. But essentially, Jungleman opens in the hijack. Mariano picks up aces in the cutoff and 3-bets to 8,600. After this,
aces for Mariano. And
Jungleman calls. The flop comes Queen, Jack, 4.
Boy, what a flop.
So the pot is 19,200. It's a 3-bet pot. Jungleman is about 170-ish big blinds deep with Mariano. And Mariano chooses a large sizing on the flop as a C-bet.
This is so good. This is a post-flop flip.
So Mariano C-bets here. And Jungleman calls.
13K.
Which, for the record, I think is fairly standard in a spot like this. Maybe the solver would elect to raise at some frequency with Jungleman's hand, but I think more so than not, we're going to see just a call, and the solver is going to want to use a more polarized sizing. Spoiler alert, I haven't even looked at the solver yet, but this is just my first impression of the hand. So he ends up calling. The turn comes a blank, which is a deuce of spades. The pot's now 45,000, and Jungleman is 125K deep. Mariano chooses a very large sizing on the turn, nearly pot, by betting 40K. After a little bit of thinking, Jungle then thinks a little bit himself, plays around with some chips, and makes the call. Then the river comes out.
Jungleman with only 85,000 behind.
The 8 of hearts. And so Jungle has roughly 2/3 pot bet left, and Mariano elects to jam.
Quick check from...
And so this is the controversial part of the hand where Mike Matisow was saying this is an easy check back in position, and Negreanu was saying that this is a very easy bet with the ace of hearts. And yeah, we're going to look through it and see which one was right.
It's snapped
so
by Jungleman, and that is a $300,000 pot.
With the second nuts. And Mariano folds, and Jungle is good. So let's take a look at, first off, the AI solution here. And we're going to be using GTO Wizard AI, which previously was Ruse that then combined with GTO Wizard to provide essentially a solver that you can use using the AI way of solving the game tree. And we can pull from that to solve the situation. So in this situation, I already have the stack set up and the pot size set up. So all that's left is to pick the sizings. So for the hijack and the cutoff, we have 2 different ranges that I've used from GTO Wizard's solution library. Now, obviously you can debate what their range actually looks like in this scenario, but for the sake of things, I'm going to use these solutions. The solution for the cutoff 3-bet range looks like this. It's going to have a lot of linear combos like aces, kings, queens, jacks, 10s, 9s, all the way down to 4s. And then you have the standard suited strong broadways like ace, king suited, ace, queen suited, ace, jack suited, etc. Some of the weaker hands in that range is going to typically be low suited connectors that have really strong playability in position. And then you have some suited aces and suited kings as a good block blocker or removal type of hand, since the hijack is going to 4-bet mainly with suited kings or suited aces. You'll see the cutoff use those. So this is what their range looks like, and this is what the solver wants to do when we look at the flop bet strategy. And so you'll see that if you give it two different sizings, 2/3 pot and a quarter pot, the AI will always choose a quarter pot. This is fairly typical in deep stack poker to not have too big of a sizing when the flop still hits the hijack very well. The hijack, even though was the pre-flop caller, still has pocket queens in their range, pocket jacks in their range. And so having these combos disincentivizes the in-position player to use a very large sizing, because typically you want to use a large sizing when you have a big nut advantage or if your range is very polarized. And so in this case, a queen jack flop, hijack has a lot of the very strong hands. So looking at Jungleman's range here, hijack is still going to have a lot of queen jack suited. Like I said, they're going to have a lot of queens and jacks. They're going to have ace queen suited and offsuit at a mix, and they're going to have pocket fours. So they're going to have a lot of the very strong hands in their range. And so that's why I think we see a lot of the small sizings from the AI. That being said, Mariano did use a 67% pot sizing, which is going to shift things significantly. However, we can take away one of the sizings. So if we take away the option to use the small sizing and force the AI to use Mariano's sizing, then we'll get a product of what the AI would do with that sizing. And you'll immediately see that in position starts checking at a high frequency. And that's because it's going to be more polar with this big sizing, and there aren't too many hands that in position actually wants to bet for a large sizing and go 3 streets. So the hands that are going to bet are going to be a mix of aces, kings, queens, jacks, and then you have some of the stronger suited broadways, and then you have some of the weaker suited combos that serve as a good semi-bluff, like 6-5 of hearts, etc. And so in this case, Mariano had aces with the ace of hearts. And we look at that strategy here, you'll see that there's a high frequency bet when they have the ace of hearts, and more so of a check without the heart. So the bet on the flop is fairly standard if you're using a 67% sizing. Let me look at his other card. I think he had the ace of clubs. Yes, he did. Which is actually one of the better combos to bet a large sizing with. So it looks like he ended up betting the 67 sizing. The hijack responds with king, queen of hearts by mixing in some raise if we give the player the option to raise 50% pot. I'm not sure what Jungle's strategy would be in this scenario, but just given the fact that we see a 50% raise here with king queen suited, I would assume most sizings we would be able to fit king queen suited in there. You could play around with, altering the size, but 50% raise is typically the standard sizing most players out of position are going to use. Maybe they might go a little bit larger, but someone like Jungle who has a lot of online experience, I would imagine he would probably use something similar to the 50 sizing as well. So we're going to have him call. And on the turn was the deuce of spades, which is a great card on the turn. I believe, let me just double check. Yeah, deuce of spades and then the 8 of hearts river. So deuce of spades on this card, Jungle is going to pure check. No surprise there, since Mariano did use that 67% size on the flop, and then he follows it up with a very large bet on the turn. Now, this bet on the turn was something like 90% pot, so we can up this sizing a bit to reflect what Mariano's range might look like. Let's just do this right here. Close. There we go. Close enough. 89% pot. That's about what he used there. Maybe even a little larger. And so again, we'll see the range is going to be very heavy towards overpairs, some sets, some 2-pair combos, and then of course a bunch of different weaker bluffing hands that have some equity, preferably something with hearts, but also some of the low suited connectors in his range. Now this is going to be important because when we analyze what Jungleman is supposed to do on the turn, we'll see that that when the cutoff does bet 89%, the hijack is mostly going to call Jungleman's combo. And that's because at this point, our bluffing range is going to be super polarized. You really want to have a hand that either is going to be able to raise for value. And if we take a look at that, it's going to generally just be queens, jacks, and a little bit of queen jack suited. Maybe some ace queen that doesn't have a particular suit, but still strong enough to jam on the turn. And the solver does want to mainly jam. It doesn't want to raise small. It just wants to get it all in. Again, even though it looks like they're super deep, they are only 172 big blinds effective once the flop hits. So it's not as much play as you might initially think. But so that's going to be the response from Jungle there. So once Mariano does bet 89%, Jungle's going to call with King, Queen of Hearts, pure frequency, and then the 8 of Hearts hits the river. So this is where we'll see exactly what the solver would do in Mariano's position. So once you get to the river, you can tell that Jungle's range is now very tight. There aren't too many hands that Jungle can actually call out of position versus the 90% sizing. So once he checks, we'll see Mariano's strategy is to, what Daniel Negreanu said, mainly jam aces with an ace of hearts and check all of the non-aces with the ace of hearts, the non-heart. And so, yeah, that's the solver solution for the situation. Now, is Jungle going to get to the river with the right hands? Is Mariano going to have the right setup for taking this line? It's very possible that that's both the case, but this is what the AI would do. You could also argue that, yes, this is what the AI would do, but what would real players do in a scenario like this? And I would argue that it's somewhat similar to what the AI would do. The theory is going to be very similar. When you have the ace of hearts, it's very hard for Jungle to have too many stronger hands by the river. And we'll see that reflected in how good of a shove it is with aces. If you look at the EV of the shove versus the EV of a check, you'll see here that the all-in is making 146 big blinds, as the check is only making 127. So it's clear that shove is going to be superior with Mariano's particular combo. And also we can take a look at what the removal effects look like when Mariano has the ace. So if you can see here, when we shove, the hands that hijack is meant to call are mainly going to be ace, queen of hearts, ace, queen, non-hearts, and then you have some ace 10 suited, ace 9 suited, king, queen suited, pocket jacks, pocket queens, ace, queen offsuit, queen, jack suited, queen 10 suited, and jack 10 suited, as well as 6-5 suited. So you have a lot of combos, but a majority of the combos that are going to call, mainly ace queen, are going to have a heart in them. So ace queen suited is going to have a heart. You're going to see ace 10 suited, ace 9 suited, maybe a little bit of these suited aces here as well at a fraction. I don't know how Jungle's going to play them on the turn or what, but maybe he'll get there out of position with them as well. And then you have the weaker parts of Jungle's range that need to call here. And this is where it gets a little dicey, because is Jungle really going to call king, queen of spades? Is he going to call king, jack, of diamonds? Is he going to call queen 10 with no, actually, that's a fold. I take that one back. Only queen jack of diamonds and king jack of clubs, sorry. But you get the idea, right? There's some weaker hands in here that maybe Jungle might not feel too great about defending. That would fall into the weaker trash hands category. So these combos here without a heart. And so, yeah, it's a little dicey because if you start removing some of these combos that jungle might call, then I think Mariano's range becomes a bit different, and you might start seeing some checkbacks in Mariano's range if jungle is not calling, hands without a heart in it. That being said, still having the Ace of Hearts, very good for Mariano to get value if jungle is calling any of the non-heart hands. That's going to wrap it up for this analysis. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if so, like and subscribe. I would love to analyze more hands in the future of some live games that you guys find interesting.